Who let the janitor in? Admiral Grant Whitaker said it into a live microphone, and 400 people laughed. Marcus Bell didn't move. He stood at the registration table in a gray shirt he'd ironed at 4 that morning, holding a folded email in his hand. Men in $5,000 gear turned to look at him. The only black man on the field. No team, no sponsor, no coach whispering in his ear, just him. Whitaker came down off the platform, slow, silver hair, catching the sun. He liked an audience. Read me your name off that little paper. Go on. Let everybody hear it. Marcus Bell. And what do you do, Mr. Bell? It's on the form. Whitaker took the paper out of his hand, held it up, squinted at it like it smelled. Maintenance technician. He let those words sit there until the laugh came. A repairman at my competition. He leaned in. Son, the men on this field have kicked down doors in 6 countries. What have you kicked down? A vending machine? Marcus looked at him and said nothing. That was the thing people never expected. He wasn't scared and he wasn't angry. He was just still. There was nothing to push against, and it made the men closest to him stop laughing before the rest of them did. I paid my entry, Marcus said. I'd like to shoot. Whitaker crumpled the email and dropped it in the dirt at his feet. Pick it up, and when you finish dead last today, frame it. Tell your friends you stood next to real men once. His voice dropped just for the front row. People like you always think showing up is the same as belonging. The field went quiet at that. Not everybody was laughing anymore. Marcus bent down, picked up the paper, smoothed it against his leg, folded it once, and put it in his shirt pocket, right over his heart. Then he picked up his rifle case and walked away without a word. Here's what Whitaker didn't know. The quiet man he just called a janitor had once made a shot the government still won't admit happened. And there was one more thing. Something that wouldn't come out for 3 more days. Something that would take the color out of a 4-star admiral's face and drop him to one knee in front of every camera on that range. But nobody knew that yet, not even close. To understand how Marcus Bell ended up here, on a range he never wanted to see, you have to go back to a hospital room. And a little girl. And the sound a machine makes when it's counting a heartbeat that's beating wrong. Marcus had a wife once. Her name was Danielle. She was the loud one, the warm one. He'd come home from 11 years of a life he couldn't talk about. And she was the person who made all that quiet stop hurting. She named their daughter Zoe. She said it meant life. Danielle died when Zoe was 2. A driver ran a red light. It was fast and it was stupid and it was over before anybody could call him. Just like that, the loud one was gone. And Marcus was standing in a kitchen holding a 2-year-old who had her mother's laugh. So he did the only thing he knew how to do. He went quiet and he went to work. He took a job fixing machines at a plant in Macon. Good insurance, steady hours, and nobody there asked where he'd been for 11 years. He fixed motors, he changed lights, he unclogged the same kind of toilets Whitaker would one day mock him for. And every night at 5:30, he came home and made dinner and read Zoe the same 3 books until he knew them by heart. For 5 years, Marcus Bell was nobody special, and it was the happiest he'd ever been. Then Zoe started getting tired. Small things first. She'd sit down in the middle of a game, stopped running to the mailbox. Then one afternoon, her lips went blue on the walk home from the bus, and he carried her the last 2 blocks with his heart pounding harder than it ever had on any ridge. The doctor in Atlanta pulled up the scan and went quiet. Marcus knew that kind of quiet. He'd been the one to go quiet like that himself years ago, over a radio, when the news was bad and there was no soft way to send it. It's her heart, the doctor said. The wall of it didn't form right. It won't fix itself, and the normal repair won't hold at her age. He turned the screen. There's a procedure, experimental, a trial team that's had real success with exactly this, but it isn't covered, not yet. How much, Marcus said. $350,000. Marcus sat in his truck a long time after that. Zoe asleep in the back, her one-eared rabbit named Biscuit tucked under her chin. He did the math on the back of a receipt, slow, one number at a time, the way he'd been taught to do math when everything was falling apart, so the fear couldn't get into the arithmetic. He had $9,000. And the doctor had used a word that was still sitting on his chest like a boot. Window. 4 months. After that, a different, worse conversation. That night, after she was asleep, Marcus opened his laptop and did the thing he'd sworn to Danielle he would never do again. He went looking for the man he used to be. He found it on a veterans forum, the Halbrook International Tactical Championship. 3 days of live fire and field events at a private range in the California hills. Open to anyone. No rank, no branch, no questions. Shooters flying in from a dozen countries, former operators, contractors, police tactical teams. Grand prize, $400,000. The biggest cash purse of any shooting competition in America. Marcus read the rules 3 times. He looked at the host on the banner, a retired Navy SEAL admiral named Grant Whitaker, arms crossed, silver hair, a man who'd clearly built the whole event as a statue of himself. Marcus felt nothing about the face. He was looking past it at the number. $350,000 for the surgery, $400,000 if he won. He hadn't held a rifle in 5 years. He'd promised Danielle the man on the ridge died overseas and only the father came home. He looked down the hall at the thin line of light under Zoe's door. Then he opened the form and in the box marked occupation. Because it was true and because he would not lie about the work that fed his daughter, he typed maintenance technician. He did not type the other thing. The other thing was sealed in a vault in Virginia under a name that wasn't even his. 6 weeks later, he was standing in the California dawn while a man dropped his paperwork in the dirt. The first round started at 8, 56 shooters, 5 shots each at a steel target, 500 yards out, 60 seconds on the clock. Top 24 moved on, and Marcus wasn't thinking about any of that. He was thinking about a number, the way he'd thought about it on the drive out, at every gas station, every night in the motel. 350,000. He'd broken it into pieces on the back of that receipt, and the pieces had names now. Advancing today was worth nothing on its own, but it was the door. You couldn't win the 400,000 if you didn't survive the morning. So the morning was Zoe. Everything was Zoe. Whitaker ran it from the platform with a microphone and a young lieutenant named Reyes beside him. "Ladies and gentlemen, the finest marksman in the world," Whitaker announced. Then he looked down at lane 12. And whatever that is. The crowd laughed. Marcus was already lying down. His breathing was slow. In his head there was no admiral, no crowd, no laughter. There was a little girl on a couch who couldn't make it to the mailbox anymore, and a doctor's word sitting on his chest. Window. 4 months, and one of them already gone. The teams fired first, good scores. Then it was Marcus. "Let's see what the repairman brought us," Whitaker said. Somebody yelled, $5 says he misses the whole target." Marcus pressed his cheek to the stock. And in the half second before the first shot, he did the thing he'd do at every trigger pull for the next 3 days. He stopped seeing the steel. He saw Zoe's face, the cape drawing, her heartbeat too fast, the one he was out here to slow down. "This one's yours, baby." The first shot hit dead center. The steel rang, sharp and clean. Center, 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 center. 8 seconds, start to finish. 50 out of 50. Perfect. The range went quiet. The confused quiet of people who just saw something they can't explain. Reyes tapped his screen twice. "That's a perfect score, sir. Fastest of the day, by a lot." Whitaker's smile stopped meaning anything. "Beginner's luck," he said. Marcus stood up, brushed off his knees, and walked back to a folding chair alone. He didn't look at the scoreboard. To everyone watching, he'd just posted the best score on the field. To Marcus, he'd bought one more day of the 4 he had left. That was all it was. One day, Closer. A Marine gunnery sergeant named Callan walked over. 12 years of competition experience, second place so far. He'd seen a lot of shooters. That was clean, Callan said. Where'd you learn to shoot like that? Here and there. Callan waited for more. There wasn't any. He looked at Marcus a second longer, at the stillness in him, the thing you can't teach. He'd seen it in exactly 2 other men, and both of them had done things they'd never talk about. Good luck, Callan said, and walked off shaking his head. Not in disrespect, in something closer to wonder. Up on the platform, Whitaker leaned toward Reyes. Pull his registration. Already did, sir. Maintenance technician? No unit, no service history listed. Reyes hesitated. Actually, sir, the system flagged as file. It's sealed. Sealed? Yes, sir. I've never seen that on a civilian entry. Whitaker watched the quiet man drink his water. A repairman with a sealed file and a perfect score. Something turned over in his stomach, and instead of listening to it, he got angry. Change round 2, he said. Move it back to 800 yards. Add a crosswind. 15 knots. Sir, we published 600 3 months ago. Everyone trained for 6. It's my range. Change it. Reyes typed. The board flickered. A murmur went through the crowd. He wasn't changing the rules for everyone. He was changing them for one man, and everyone could see it. That night, Marcus called home. Miss Ada, the neighbor, was staying with Zoe. Daddy, did you win the money? First part of it, baby. There's more tomorrow. How much more? He almost smiled. She'd started asking about the number too. She knew it was for her, even if nobody had said so out loud. A lot more, he said. The big part's still coming. Is it hard? A little, but I've done harder. He closed his eyes. How you feeling? Tired. That small voice, the one that scared him worse than anything Whitaker could say. But I drew you a picture. You're at the shooting. I gave you a cape. A cape. Because you're a superhero. You just don't tell anybody. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed and couldn't speak for a second. Somewhere in Atlanta, a surgical team had a window that was closing, and here was his whole reason for everything, calling it a cape. That's right, he finally said. It's a secret. Get some sleep. I'll call you tomorrow. He hung up and lay back and heard Dell, his old spotter, the way he did every night. Dell was 15 years older, the only man alive who'd seen every shot Marcus ever took. He used to say the same thing before everyone. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be still. Dell had died on their last mission, 30 yards from the helicopter, close enough that Marcus heard it in his earpiece. There wasn't anything left to carry home. Marcus had finished the job, watched the bird lift off, stopped speaking for 3 days, and then gone home to a woman named Danielle who made the quiet stop hurting. But it wasn't Dell's voice steadying him tonight. Not really. It was a 7-year-old telling him the superhero always wins the last part. He fell asleep doing the math again. 50,000 short, even if he won it all. He'd figure out the 50,000. He always figured it out. He fell asleep with the lights on. He always did. Round 2. 800 yards, 4 big fans pushing a fake crosswind across the line. Whitaker had moved it back and added the wind overnight, just for him, and everyone knew it. 10 shots, 90 seconds. Marcus didn't waste any anger on it. Anger cost time, and time was the one thing his daughter didn't have. He'd wrapped his rifle the night before and thought about it plainly. The harder Whitaker made it, the more men would fall out, and the fewer men left, the closer the 400,000 got to Atlanta. Whitaker thought he was building a wall. Marcus saw a shorter line to a hospital. The scores dropped hard. A shooter 3 lanes down missed the target completely and slammed his fist in the dirt. Whitaker smiled through all of it. His range, his wind, his game. Then Marcus lay down at lane 6. 6-inch thread tied to his barrel. An old trick, older than the fancy meters everybody else was using. He read the wind like a sentence. And before the first shot, same as always, the steel went away and his daughter came up in its place. Still here for you, Zoe. First shot, 3 seconds. Center. Second. Faster. Center. By the 5th shot, the crowd had gone silent again. Shot after shot, that clean ring off the steel. Shot 8, the wind gusted and pulled it wide. First ring, not center. His first flawed shot in 2 rounds, he adjusted. Shot 9, center. Shot 10, center. 98 out of 100. The next best score all day was 85. Shot by a man with 14 years of service and a spotter calling wind in his ear the whole time. Marcus had beaten him by 13 points, alone, in a wind built to break him. Nobody cheered, they just stared. Callan sat 2 chairs down. He'd shot an 81. 98, he said. In that wind, no spotter. Wind wasn't that bad, Marcus said. It blew Harmon's round clean off the target. Harmon was aiming too far left to start. Callan turned all the way around. You saw his shot? He's 6 lanes over. Marcus opened his water and didn't answer. Up top, Whitaker was having a different kind of moment. Get me his file, he told Reyes. Call Virginia. Call somebody. Sir, sealed files need a congressional. I know what they need. Find out who he is. That's not a maintenance technician. 98 at 800 with no spotter. That's something they don't put on a form. Whitaker watched the quiet man sit in his chair, looking at nothing, and for the first time, it wasn't anger in his chest. It was something colder. He couldn't find the crack in this man. Every shooter he'd ever faced had a tell. Nerves, ego, temper. This one had none. He sat in the dirt like a man who'd spent a lot of his life in the dirt, which Whitaker was starting to understand he probably had. Round 3, Whitaker said. 1,200 yards, moving target, 6 variables. Reyes stared at him. Sir, the standard's 1,000, stationary. That's beyond most shooters here, including our own guys. Then they'll rise to it. And add this. Solo shooters have to hit 95 to advance. Teams qualify at 80. Sir, that rule doesn't exist. It does now. Everyone on the field knew what he was doing. He wasn't raising the bar, he was building a wall. And building it for one man. Callan walked over to lane 6, where Marcus was cleaning his rifle. You saw the new rules. I saw them. He's trying to disqualify you. You could file a protest. That's discrimination in the open. Marcus ran a brush through the barrel. I'm not here to file protests. Then what are you here for? Marcus looked up, and for just a second, Callan saw all the way in. Not anger, something older and heavier. The look of a man who had no room left in his life to lose. I'm here to win, Marcus said. Callan pulled up a chair. I'll spot for you. Marcus stopped. You don't know me. I know you shot a 98 in a crosswind with nobody helping you. That's enough. And whatever he's doing up there, it shouldn't work. Not like this. Marcus studied him the way he'd study wind, looking for the thing that'd throw the shot off. He didn't find it. Okay, he said. Callan never asked why he needed the money, never asked about the sealed file. He just opened his own kit and started doing math for 1,200 yards. That night, Miss Ada answered instead of Zoe. She had a rough afternoon, Marcus. Nothing scary. The doctor says it's the tiredness. It comes and goes. But she's asleep already. She made me promise to write something down so I'd say it right. Paper rustled. She said, tell Daddy the superhero always wins the last part. Marcus held the phone against his ear a long time. How rough, he said finally. Tell me straight, Ada. A pause on the line that told him more than the words did. She napped most of the day, baby. That's all. You just win your thing and come home to her. So, he sat in the dark of the motel after he hung up and did the math one more time. Not the money this time, the days. 2 of his 4 months gone. The window in Atlanta didn't care about scoreboards or admirals or charter rules. It only knew one direction, and it was closing while he lay in the dirt 600 miles away. He'd come out here to buy time. He hadn't understood until that phone call that the buying was costing time too. He didn't sleep much. When he did, he didn't hear the earpiece. He heard a machine in a hospital room counting a heartbeat that beat wrong. Round 3 started at 7, under a clear sky and a shimmer of heat mirage hanging over the range. 1,200 yards out, a steel silhouette slid left to right on a rail, pausing a second and a half at random, no pattern you could count on. 6 variables live at once: wind, mirage, light, humidity, elevation, and a barometric shift that raised and lowered the target 6 inches every 45 seconds. It was the hardest course ever run at this competition, and it was designed to beat exactly one person. The teams went first, and it was a slaughter. The favorites averaged 51, best individual 58. 2 shooters missed the moving target entirely. Whitaker's smile got wider with every low number, because the harder it got, the more impossible it looked for a lone man to hit 72 out of 75. Then Marcus walked to lane 6, and Callan lay down beside him. The night before, Marcus had looked at Callan's win math for about 10 seconds and said, "The Mirage resets every 11 seconds. The target pauses longest on the 3rd interval. Shoot on the pause." How do you know the Mirage cycle? Watched it during warm-ups. He'd spent 11 years reading terrain and wind and heat in places where a miss meant somebody died. A range with machines making the wind was a children's book, compared to a mountain valley at 4 in the morning with no backup and no margin at all. He settled behind the rifle. His breathing dropped 4 cycles a minute. His heart rate fell under 50. "Winds 11, gusting 14, Callan said quietly. "First pause in 4. The target paused. Marcus fired. Center, 15 points. 2 clicks right. He adjusted. Center, 15. 3rd shot, the Mirage thickened. Hold half a mil left. It's bending the image." He held. Center, 15. 45 out of 45. The cameras had stopped moving. The journalists put their phones down. Even the crew running the fans were just watching now. 4th shot. The barometric shift dropped the target 6 inches mid-rail. Callan caught it a half beat late. Down 0.3. Marcus fired. First ring, not center. 12 instead of 15. 57 of 60. He needed a perfect last shot to make 72. Up on the platform, something that looked almost like hope crossed Whitaker's face. The final shot. The target started moving. Wind gusted to 14. Every variable live at once. "You'll get a 1.2 second window," Callan said. "That's all." Window. The word landed in Marcus's chest the way it had landed in that doctor's office. And for 1 second, the range disappeared entirely. He wasn't at Halbrook. He was in a parking deck in Atlanta with a receipt and a pen and a girl asleep in the back seat, doing math so the fear couldn't get into it. 1.2 seconds here, 4 months there, both of them closing. Both of them the same window, really, the only window that had ever mattered. He counted his own heartbeats and thought about hers. The target paused. 1.2 seconds. He fired. 2 seconds of silence. Then the ring. Clean, sharp, final. 72 out of 75. 1 point over the wall Whitaker built, and 1 whole round closer to the surgery. The next best score was 58. The back rows came apart. The families, the young enlisted kids watching from behind the fence, they stood up and roared. Callan sat up off his scope with his hands shaking, not from cold, from watching something impossible happen 2 feet away. "That's the best shooting I've ever seen," he said. Marcus pulled the bolt back and cleared the chamber. He didn't smile. He looked at the scoreboard for 2 seconds, then looked away. "It's not over," he said. Whitaker was already off the platform, walking to the official's tent. 11 minutes later, he came out and stood in the middle of the range with the microphone. Given the level of competition this year, the final will be head-to-head. Top 2 scorers, 1-on-1, 5 shots each, tomorrow morning. He paused. "And as the host and a 2-time champion of this event, I'm invoking my right under the charter to enter the final myself, as a wild card." Callan was on his feet. "That article hasn't been used in 12 years. Whitaker ignored him. He was looking at Marcus. Tomorrow, 7 a.m., you and me, repairman, unless you'd rather take second and go home. I'm sure it's more money than you've ever seen. Marcus met his eyes. I'll be here. The clips of the 1,200-yard shots were already going up faster than the range Wi-Fi could handle. Within an hour, one of them was trending. And 600 miles away, in a windowless office in Virginia, a 2-star general named Harlan Pruitt watched the same clip on his phone. He had just gotten a call from an old contact. Harlan, there's a shooter out at Halbrook. Retired, sealed file. Shooting like nothing I've seen since. Name's Marcus Bell. Pruitt set his coffee down. He hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in 5 years. Not since he'd signed the order that sealed the file himself. He knew exactly who Marcus Bell was. He knew the code name. He knew the mission in the mountains that never officially happened. And he knew one more thing, a thing that made him stand up out of his chair so fast it rolled back and hit the wall. He knew whose son, Marcus Bell, had carried out of that building, because the boy's father had spent 4 years since then telling the story at every dinner he attended. The quiet operator who'd walked into fire to bring his son home. A retired Navy admiral named Grant Whitaker. Pruitt called his aide, "Get me on the first flight to California, tonight." That night, the call didn't go the way the others had. Miss Ada picked up on the second ring, and her voice was careful in a way that stopped his heart. "She's okay, Marcus. I want you to hear me say that first. She's okay." But they took her in this afternoon, just to watch her overnight. Her color wasn't right. The doctor said it's precautionary. That's the word she used, precautionary. Marcus was already standing. Put the phone to her ear. "She's sleeping, baby. Real sleep, good sleep. They've got her comfortable. Let her rest." A pause. She knew you'd want to talk to her. So before she went down, she told me one more time, word for word, "Tell Daddy to win the last part." She said, "You promised." Marcus stood in the middle of a motel room 600 miles from his daughter's hospital bed. And for the first time in 3 days, the stillness left him. His hands weren't steady. He gripped the phone until it hurt. "Tell her I'm coming home with it," he said. "All of it. Tell her the superhero heard her." He didn't sleep at all that night. He sat on the edge of the bed with the cape drawing in his hands, and when the sun came up, he was still holding it. Tomorrow was the final. One more shot between him and the only thing on earth he'd broken his own promise to come out here and get. And his girl was in a hospital bed while he did it. He folded the drawing and put it in his shirt pocket, right over his heart, next to the paperwork Whitaker had thrown in the dirt. Then he went to win the last part. The final started under a sky so clear it looked painted on. No wind, no mirage machines, no moving rail. Whitaker had picked the conditions himself. 1,200 yards, still steel, 5 shots each. He'd stripped away every trick he'd thrown at Marcus for 3 days, because this time he was shooting too, and Grant Whitaker did not compete under conditions that could embarrass him. The crowd was 3 times bigger. The clips had gone national overnight. Camera trucks lined the fence. A helicopter circled overhead, feeding a live broadcast. This wasn't a competition anymore. It was a reckoning, and everybody could feel it. They set up at lanes 1 and 2. Whitaker in a fresh uniform, his spotter beside him. Marcus in the same gray shirt, Callan at his side. "Last chance to walk away, repairman," Whitaker said. Marcus was setting up his rifle. He didn't look over. He wasn't shooting against the man next to him. He never had been. 600 miles away, his daughter was in a hospital bed, and every point on that scoreboard was a piece of the thing that would get her out of it. Whitaker was just weather. You don't argue with weather. You read it, and you shoot through it. The range officer called it alternating shots, Whitaker first. Whitaker fired, center, 15. The crowd cheered. Marcus fired, center, 15, tied. Second shots, both center, tied at 30. Whitaker's third shot, he stayed down 4 seconds instead of 2. The pressure was on him now, on his range, in front of his crowd, his name on the banner behind him. He fired. First ring, 12:42. The bleachers gasped. Whitaker stood up too fast. Marcus is third. Same breath, same rhythm. Center. 15, 45. 3 points ahead. Fourth shots. Both center. Marcus, 60. Whitaker, 57. 1 shot each left. Whitaker went down for his final shot and stayed there 6 seconds. His spotter whispered something. Whitaker didn't answer. He was staring through his scope at a target he'd hit 10,000 times on his own range, and his hands weren't steady. He fired. Center. 15. 72. The best he could have done. Marcus needed a center hit to win. One more. He lay behind the rifle. No wind, no mirage, just 1,200 yards of still air. And for once, he didn't reach for Dell's voice. He didn't need the man on the ridge. He reached for the other thing, the real thing, the thing that had gotten him out of bed every morning for 5 years and put him in this dirt. He closed his eyes and he saw her. Not sick, not tired, not in a hospital bed with her color wrong. He saw Zoe the way she'd been before all this, running to the mailbox, laughing that laugh she got from her mother, alive and loud and his. He saw the girl this shot was going to buy back. The superhero wins the last part, baby. Watch. He opened his eyes, found center, breathed out, and in that last half second, the steel target 1,200 yards away and his daughter's heartbeat 600 miles away were the same thing. One target, one shot, one girl. He fired. 2 seconds of the longest silence anyone there had ever felt. Then the ring. Clean, final. 75. 5 for 5. Marcus Bell had won. And somewhere in a hospital in Atlanta, a machine kept counting a heartbeat he was finally able to save. The crowd didn't react right away. There was a pause, a held breath while everybody caught up to what they'd seen. Then it broke, all at once, the whole range on its feet. Whitaker didn't get up. He stayed down behind his rifle, staring at the target he'd just lost to on his own range, and he could not make himself stand. Then a voice cut across all of it. Attention on deck. Every service member on the field snapped straight. Major General Harlan Pruitt walked onto the range in his dress uniform, 2 stars on each shoulder, a colonel behind him with a leather case, 2 MPs at his side. He walked straight past Whitaker without a glance and stopped in front of Marcus. Marcus saw him, and something moved in his face. The first crack in 3 days. Not fear, recognition, and something close to grief. Pruitt turned to the crowd. His voice carried without a microphone. My name is Major General Harlan Pruitt. I'm here to correct a wrong. The man beside me is Marcus Bell. What none of you know, what almost no one alive has been told, is that Marcus Bell is one of the most decorated covert operators this country has ever produced. 11 years. Missions that remain classified to this day. I sealed his file myself, by my own order, to protect his life. The range went dead silent. Pruitt turned to Whitaker. Admiral, for 3 days you humiliated this man. You called him a janitor. You changed the rules of your own competition to break him. You invoked a charter nobody's used in 12 years so you could beat him personally. He paused. And he beat you anyway, on your range, in front of your crowd. Whitaker's mouth opened. Nothing came out. But that's not why I got on a plane last night, Pruitt said. He looked at Marcus, then back at Whitaker, and his voice dropped so the whole silent field had to lean in. Admiral, 4 years ago, your son was pinned inside a burning compound overseas. A structure fire under fire. Command had written the position off. You know this. You've told the story at every dinner in Washington for 4 years. The operator who went in and carried your boy out. The one whose name you were never given. The blood went out of Whitaker's face. You never asked who he was, Pruitt said. You just told everyone he was a hero. He turned and looked at the quiet man in the gray shirt. He's standing right there. The man you called a janitor this morning is the man who gave you back your son. Somewhere in the bleachers, a sound came out of Grant Whitaker's chest that a 4-star admiral is never supposed to make in public. His knees went. One of the MPs caught his arm. He stared at Marcus like he was seeing a ghost, and maybe he was, because for 4 years he'd built this whole shining event as a monument to men like the one he'd spent 3 days grinding into the dirt. Marcus didn't say anything. He never wanted him to know. A man like Marcus doesn't carry another man's son out of a fire so he can collect on it later. He'd done it because the boy was breathing and the building was burning. And that was the whole reason. And it was enough. Pruitt reached into the leather case. Marcus, 5 years ago I sealed your record to protect you. With your permission, today I'd like to read one line of it into the open. Marcus looked at the ground a long moment. Then he nodded. Once. By order of the Secretary of Defense, Pruitt read, the following is entered into the public record. Marcus Bell, 11 years. The Distinguished Service Cross. 2 Bronze Stars with Valor, the Purple Heart. He lowered the paper. And a rescue, 4 years ago, of 1 American serviceman from a burning structure under enemy fire. The serviceman's name is being withheld at the family's request, though I suspect his father would like to say it himself someday. The crowd came up off the bleachers like a wave, but Marcus wasn't looking at the crowd. He'd pulled a folded picture out of his shirt pocket, the same pocket where he'd put his crumpled paperwork 3 days ago, right over his heart. A child's drawing, a stick man with a rifle and a red cape. He looked at it, and for the first time in 3 days, the still man's eyes filled. Callan stepped up beside him. You did it. Not yet, Marcus said. His voice broke on it. There's a surgery. He got his $400,000 in a quiet ceremony the next week. No cameras this time. He asked for it that way. $350,000 went straight to the hospital in Atlanta the same afternoon. Zoe Bell went into the trial 11 days later. Grant Whitaker was stripped of his role as host within 48 hours. 6 formal complaints came in from competitors, including from his own guys. His name came off the banner. But that isn't the part that finished him, and everybody who was there knows it. What finished him was a video that went out to 18 million people in 2 days, of an admiral on one knee in the dirt of his own range, learning the name of the man who'd saved his son and realizing he'd spent 3 mornings spitting on him. He wrote Marcus a letter. 4 pages, they say. Nobody knows what was in it but the 2 of them. Marcus never talked about it. He wasn't the type. Callan drove down to Georgia 2 months later with a cooler of beer and a spotting scope he said he needed to return. I never lent you a scope, Marcus said from the porch. I know, I needed an excuse. They sat and watched the sun go down. And through the front window, in the light of the living room, a little girl with a fresh scar under her collarbone was building a fort out of couch cushions, moving slow but moving, breathing easy for the first time in a year, a one-eared rabbit tucked under one arm. Marcus watched her and didn't say anything for a while. He didn't have to. Callan understood. Some people don't need the next chapter. They just need this one to end right. What are you going to do now? Callan asked. Marcus looked out at the yard. The evening was warm. Somewhere down the street, a kid was laughing, and inside his house, so was his. Something quiet, he said. And for the first time in 5 years, when Marcus Bell closed his eyes that night, he didn't hear the sound in the earpiece or the silence after. He heard his daughter laughing in the next room, alive, and that was enough. Here's the thing that stays with me about this one. The most dangerous man in any room is almost never the loudest. It's the quiet one in the corner who doesn't need you to know what he is. He doesn't announce it. He doesn't wear it on his sleeve. He just shows up, does the thing that has to be done, and walks away like it was nothing. And the whole time, the loud man is still talking about himself. Whitaker changed the rules 3 times, built the whole thing to break him. And Marcus never argued, never raised his voice, never said a word. He just adjusted and won. Because he was never really fighting the admiral at all. He was fighting a clock 600 miles away, ticking down over a little girl's hospital bed. So let me ask you something. Have you ever carried something nobody around you could see? Fought a battle in silence that the loud people in the room knew nothing about? Tell me in the comments. If this one got you, share it, like it, subscribe. Because the quietest person in the room is usually carrying the heaviest thing in it, and silence is never weakness.